What's going on, RNG people of Earth? I'm Nick Glaser. I am here to show you my deck profile for my Freestyle Frieza that I used in the Dragon Ball Z Fusion format tournament at Gen Con last week. This deck got me to top 4. Really fun deck to play. This is one of the most satisfying decks I've played in that format yet. It's clearly not, the very best there is. There may have been some things that I could have done to get to finish better. Maybe could have gone to the finals or even won with it. The deck really is that powerful, but it's not 100% yet. So this is going to be, kind of a work in progress for me, but I'm going to show you where it's at. I'm really happy with a lot of what's working within this deck right now. So I'm going to show you what I got going on. Obviously, I got the Frieza level 1 from, it's the Fan Z foil, but this is the Frieza level 1 that will hop you up to level 2 from Frieza named cards. And as you can see, these are all my Frieza named cards. There is more to this deck. I'm going to show you the rest of it later, but I'm focusing on the substantive part of the Frieza named deck right now is what's in front of you. And he can hop me up to level 2 to start the game, which is absolutely clutch in this deck. That's why you play this deck. There's a lot of sweet things you can do. Frieza level 2 gold, and that's the one you want to get to. It's the highest power stages in the game. Got a killer effect. I'm rejuvenating cards from my banish zone every turn, using crits, gaining stages, doing life cards of damage. Sweet thing to do. Frieza level 3 +2/+2 on every attack. It's just so that you don't want to put me there. I want to be on level 2 or level 4 in this deck. That level 3 is there just to punish my opponent for trying to stick me not on level 2 or level 4. If they can change my levels, 1, I have enough Frieza name cards that I can get off level 1 as many times as I want to, and 3 is just not a great place for me to be for them either. So at any point, this deck is going to be doing what it needs to be doing, but I want to be ideally at level 4, if not at level 2. Freestyle Mastery, obviously I'm running so many name cards, it lets me tutor for anything that I need. Overwhelming power now in this format can get the crit effect when you tutor it with the Mastery. So this just gives me access to 2 crits almost as cantrips, both actually as cantrips, anytime that I really need them. And of course with the level 2, there's nothing that you're going to do to remove them from the game. So it's coming out at you. I can steal Dragon Balls. I was playing against a Dragon Ball deck, Ryan Lewis's Yamcha Dragon Ball deck. Great deck, and I had most of his Dragon Balls most of the game, just because I was critting so much. North Kai Sensei turns off the Mastery twice per game. Nothing. Well, there's a couple tricky things in the side deck, but nothing that's really going to surprise you. I got Power of the Dragon. Just for dealing with Dragon Ball decks, I actually did get to shuffle all of Ryan Lewis's Dragon Balls in with the Power of the Dragon. A turn later than I should have, but it was in time to reset the game for him and give me all the gas that I needed to win. Is just there for the extra assurance. City and Turmoil, awesome card. I'm going to main deck this card later. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's coming out, but City and Turmoil is going in as a main deck card in this deck, just because it's devastating against the right opponents, and I don't like having it as a dead card in the deck, but it's never really, maybe I'll do it as a 2 of in the main deck. It's hard to predict when you're going to need it and when you're not going to need it. So just to have it there, and to also not telegraph it to the opponents that are going to be preparing for it. The only things in the side deck that you might not be familiar with, even if you are familiar with this game, are the Frieza name cards. So I've got Frieza's. All of these cards are cards that are okay, mediocre cards. They're in this deck because they're Frieza named, and they're in the side deck because they're not going to be good in a lot of matches, but they do some cool things in certain matchups. So Frieza's Influencing Drill. Lower my opponent's anger 1 level after every successful energy attack I perform. My deck is throwing energy attacks, 2 per combat on average, maybe more. Just to do this, just to get at the anger down. Frieza's Spirit's the same thing. You may reduce every hero's anger level to 0. So I can just, I can drop this into play, reduce a hero's anger level to 0 anytime. Also, this is why City and Turmoil was originally in the side deck. If I main deck it, I might change pretty much everything I'm showing you right now. Frieza's Featherlight Touch, capture an opponent's Dragon Ball. not even as good as my main personality power, but it's Frieza named, and it's pretty, and it's limited, and I wanted to run it. So this card was in my deck, and probably going to stay there just to be there, even if nothing else. Now, you'll notice I only have 12 cards in the Sensei deck. I have a chance to add something else, and I think I'm going to add Breakfall. Breakfall's a card from Fusion Saga, I believe, and I'm gonna tell you a little bit about that card later on, but that's probably going to be the 13th slot in the North Kai Sensei deck. To the main deck, these are all my Frieza name cards plus my allies. This is half of my deck right here. I didn't do an actual count of how many cards these are, but it's 15, 18, 20. This is a good 30, 35 cards right here. Most of my deck is Frieza named, and that is key. That is key because of two cards. Frieza Supernova. You've played this game, you know what Frieza Supernova does. It's an energy attack for 5. It does +3 life cards for every Frieza name card in my discard pile. Now, this is a card that I actually designed when I was, well, helped design when I was doing set 1 with Pansy. And this was a kind of a nod to Frieza's Irritation Grows, because Frieza's Irritation Grows was, in the score game, pretty much the only unique, interesting thing that Frieza ever did. He had a lot of discard pile manipulation in a way that nobody else does. While I'm on the subject of Frieza's Irritation Grows, you can't forget Frieza's Anger Blast, that acts as a copy of Frieza's Irritation Grows. So, Frieza Supernova does 5+3 for every Frieza name card in your discard pile. Frieza's Irritation Grows, physical attack. If successful, I gain an anger for every Frieza's Irritation Grows in my discard pile. Frieza's Anger Blast is an energy attack, can be focused if I have enough anger, and it counts as a copy of Frieza's Irritation Grows in my discard pile. So I can use this to go ahead and hop up a level if I have all 3 Anger Blasts and both Irritation Grows in my discard pile. Now, I don't generally have that situation going on, simply because of another card which has always been the best Frieza named card, or at least in the conversation as the very best Frieza named card since it came out. But a lot of people forget this card exists, or never knew it exists, or just forget what it does. This Frieza's Bombardment is absolutely insane, and it is what makes this deck go. This is why that I run every Frieza name card that I could possibly justify fitting in this deck, because Frieza's Daunting Bombardment, it's a focused energy for 6 life cards of damage, which is already worth running in this deck. If used by Frieza, which it always is, for the remainder of combat, all your attacks from Frieza name cards do an additional +3 life cards of damage, which means that this card does 9 life cards of damage. It gets its own buff. If successful, all Frieza name cards in my discard pile get shuffled into my life deck. Holy shit, folks. This deck can rejuvenate half of itself. This is like a Goku's Relentless Strikes deck that doesn't really rely on the Banished Zone. This is coming straight from your discard pile. Not to mention that I am getting things out of my Banished Zone, so I'm putting everything where I want it to be. And I shuffled a couple of games. I probably shuffled upwards of 60 cards back into my deck over multiple Daunting Bombardments over the course of the game. The card is absolutely sick. With a few different things in my deck, I can actually get my life deck to larger than it actually was, technically. I never actually go that way, just because of the way games play out. But it is technically possible to have more than 60 cards in my deck legally because of Daunting Bombardment. Obviously, the Frieza level 1, I'm banishing 7 Frieza name cards at the beginning of the game. These 2 rows here are the cards that I'm picking from that. So we have Frieza's Arrogance always comes out, because when it's rejuvenated, I tutor for an ally. King Cold never goes out, even though he counts as a Frieza name card and he does get +3 off of Daunting Bombardment even just for using his power. He never goes out because Frieza's Arrogance always goes out, because level 2 always targets Frieza's Arrogance. Frieza's Arrogance comes in, I target King Cold, put him in play. He has a physical attack that I can use regardless of my power stages, that if it hits, I get to shuffle another Frieza name card from my Banished Zone, which I'll get the other Frieza's Arrogance, and then I'll grab either Chilled or Captain Ginyu. Captain Ginyu's there because he's probably the most generically good villain ally there is. My opponent plays with his hand revealed, I don't. Gives me perfect knowledge. It's just a benefit that I can know when my Supernovas, when my Daunting Bombardments, when my Irritation Grows are gonna hit. And that makes decisions really, really, really easy. Chilled. Just, rejuvenate a card. I can play Time as a Warrior's Tool, play whatever I'm going to play, rejuvenate it, and banish the bottom 3 of your discard pile. Also, cards cannot attach to personalities, and with King Cold, my opponent cannot use effects to lower my personality a level, which isn't really a big deal in this deck if he does. But it's nice to be able to stop it from. Chilled stops my opponent from unleashing. It's pretty great. So, I've already told you that I'm definitely going to take out the Frieza's Arrogance at the beginning of every game. What else comes out at the beginning of every game? Well, I have these other 5 choices. Overwhelming Power is there. It's a great card in a lot of matchups. This is probably the one that I choose least often, but I do choose it sometimes if I'm, playing against somebody who has a lot of stages and is doing physical damage and probably doesn't have a whole lot of non-combats anyways. I'm not going to put Overwhelming Power in because I'm probably not going to be able to use it a whole lot. I might be able to use it for a crit, and I might get it back over the course of the game. That's also what makes this decision so easy, is that whatever I choose to get rid of, I can get back if I really decide to want to. So there's not a whole lot of consequences to making a wrong decision in here. But Overwhelming Power is on the list. Frieza's Ready also on the list. Great card. It's a Villainous Visage, but it's Frieza name. That card stays in pretty much any time that I'm not putting in City and Turmoil. If I'm putting in City and Turmoil, I'll get rid of Frieza's Ready, just because I'm hoping to not be able to use it anyways. Frieza's Powering Rage, kind of in the same thing, but I'm a little more willing to get rid of it. It's villains only. Any villain personality gains 5 power stages. Very useful. It's a card that helps me out occasionally in games, and I do like having it in the deck, but it's one of the first ones that I'll get rid of in a lot of matchups, especially if I'm not expecting any sort of physical beatdown. Frieza's Tailhold, great physical attack. If successful, also remove an ally of my choice from the game. Gotta get rid of this card if I don't think my opponent's playing allies, because I can't even throw it with one of my allies in play. Because if they let it hit, I'm going to have to banish one of my own allies. I could banish Captain Ginyu or Chilled and not be able to get them back. So, the card is fantastic in certain matchups just because it's a wimpy little physical attack that requires a block anyways. Or it's just, at the worst case scenario, I can still pitch it to my Mastery, which is why some of these choices are very, 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 very forgiving. I can make the wrong choice and still win a game pretty regularly in this deck. Frieza's Captive Strike is just there in case I decide that I want all the rest of the things, I need something else to get rid of. Frieza's Captive Strike is great just to pitch to the Mastery, gain an anger, but it's also great to just get rid of and not think about it, because I'm not really going to be doing anything with the card. It's just there to be a Frieza name card, just to feed into the Supernovas and the Daunting Bombardments and all the other stuff. These cards right here, it's kind of like having 2 sideboards. It's kind of like this is a sideboard that I can choose to put in at the beginning of the game, and these are the cards that I can choose to take out at the beginning of the game. I start my game with 53 cards. I start the first combat with 53 cards in, even with drawing, I have about 50 cards in that deck at max, and I can get a whole bunch of it back, and I can get back up to full power. This deck puts itself in a hole to begin with, very thematically appropriate for Frieza, but it just comes back with the Frieza's Daunting Bombardments. It comes back with the level 2 banishing, rejuvenating from the banish zone, and makes an absolute mockery of some of the normal rules of this game. It's really, really fun to play. Frieza Smiles, it's play as a first card from your hand during combat. It's a stop all, stops every physical or energy, and you can choose physical or energy, so it's not going to stop a focus the time that you use it. Somebody throws a focus attack, you freeze a Smiles, you can still play the card, it's not going to stop that, but then you choose to stop all energies or stop all physicals. Frieza Smiles is going to work on that for the remainder of combat. You have to play it as a first card in your hand, which is sometimes a factor, but generally speaking, because you have the level 2, because you have the allies that you can take actions with, you can enter combat, you can make an action and not telegraph that you have this card in your hand. Really, really nice. Frieza's Force Bubble is just a stop all for energies. One of the reasons that you play Frieza. Frieza's Irritation grows. The rest of this, most of we went over. Frieza's Aura Shot, Frieza's Fingertip Energy Blast. These are cool cards. This one lowers my opponent's anger to 0, which generally doesn't matter, but it's nice to have when it does matter. Frieza's Aura Shot almost never matters. It's just an energy that does 6. It can beef itself up to 7. And we're back with the non-Frieza name portion of the deck. There's not a whole lot left. As you can see, this is pretty much everything in the deck that is not Frieza named, and it's all good stuff. It's all things that you really, really want to have. There's some things that are staples in every deck. There's Time as Warrior's Tools, Super Saiyan effect you kind of want to have in pretty much anything. Battle pausing is great. The old battle pausing that does a bunch of stuff. Stare down, of course, being a villain, using the stare down, getting that Supernova out of your hand. Earth Dragon Ball 7. I don't generally want to end combat, but I really do want to set up the top of my deck with a stare down and a Supernova or a Daunting Bombardment, especially when I know that you're not holding any blocks with Ginyu. Earth Dragon Ball 7 is... honestly, it's a closing. It's a game finisher in every sense. The card really does make the deck work. Villainous energy spheres don't come into play too often, but they're nice to have. I have the slots in the deck. I can make them go. Ultimate defense is not considered a staple. It really should be. This card does not see a whole lot of play. I'm going to pull out the foily version here to show you guys. This is a Omni block, stops a physical or energy attack that does not banish itself from the game. This goes to your discard pile. So in this deck, we can get it back with a card I haven't shown you yet. We can get it back with Earth Dragon Ball 7. We can get it back with a whole bunch of different ways. What's the other one I was thinking of? Chilled can get it back. You can discard a card from your hand to have it stop a focused attack instead, which is great in this format because there are some big-ass focused attacks, including, of course, Frieza's Daunting Bombardment, that you can stop with an Omni block because of ultimate defense. It also has a parenthetical effect. It says when your opponent uses a non-damage card effect that discards or removes from the game the top cards of your life deck, discard this card from your hand to reduce that amount of cards by 10 to a minimum of 0. So if I hit you for 5 and then you try to Villainous Visage on me, I can just discard this from my hand. Boom, Villainous Visage is done for. This card is called Ultimate Defense because it is the ultimate defensive card. And considering, when you consider cards that defend against a single attack, I don't think there's a better one in the game than Ultimate Defense in terms of stopping damage. You just cannot find anything more versatile than it. It's a really, really, really good card. Energy Ricochet here. Energy Ricochet stops an energy attack, raise my anger 1, lower my opponent's anger 1, already great. You can remove 2 cards in your Sensei deck from the game to shuffle this card back into your life deck after use. So I'm using this card, I'm shuffling it back into my life deck, so I'm going to be using the Endurance on this card 3 times a game, almost every game, because it's coming back and coming back and coming back, because I am happy to remove things from my Sensei deck into my Banish Zone, because I can put Frieza name cards in there, because I can get those back. This card is a big reason why it doesn't matter. If I want to Sensei in 7 cards at the beginning of this game, I can Sensei in 7 cards. I'll probably catch, 4 or 5 Frieza name cards, and if there are any Frieza name cards that I absolutely want back, Energy Ricochet lets me banish them from my Sensei deck, and then my level 2 lets me shuffle them in from my Banish Zone. So I'm feeding cards out of my Sensei deck back into my life deck, and Energy Ricochet is what makes it go. Energy Ricochet, also the reason that I'm considering playing Breakfall, and I gotta give a shout out to Josh Morris right here, because he's the one who did this a lot back in the day, and remembered it till now, and reminded me that it's a possibility. In this format, you guys might be familiar with a card called Dazed. It's a Fusion Saga rare, it's an event, your opponent must pass as his next 2 actions. That there is more text on that card. That card is just generically good. It gives you it ends combat, but it gives you 1 extra action before combat ends. A lot of decks will play that card. The reason that that card has more text, though, is it has a thing that most people have forgotten is on the card. Most people who've been playing this game for a while have seen the card so much, and the other text has not come into play that they forgot what it does. What it does is it says, if Breakfall is in either player's Banish Zone, this card has no effect. So, I don't want to play Breakfall. It's not good for this deck. It's meaningless, but I can put it in my Sensei deck. I can use Energy Ricochet to take it from my Sensei deck, put it into my Banish Zone. If I do that just randomly, if I'm expecting Dazed, or if I just don't have anything else that I want to Energy Ricochet for, and then my opponent throws a Dazed, it does nothing. And sometimes you'll catch people off guard. Sometimes people are just not expecting it. Actually, most times people are not expecting it. Actually, I can't think of anybody who's ever going to expect it. Even if you watch this video and play me next week, you probably are going to forget about it unless you specifically are watching for it constantly. And if you're paying that much attention, I'm going to beat you in other ways. So this is just it's a fun thing. It doesn't fit in every deck, but this deck just happens to have an extra spot in its Sensei deck. It happens to already run Energy Ricochet. I can't think of any reason not to go that route, so I'm going to go ahead and add it in. Hopefully we can find an image of Breakfall to show you guys after this game so I can tell you what I'm talking about. Anything else I haven't talked about? Narrow Escape. This is a Time as Warriors tool that banishes itself if you are a Freestyle Mastery at level 2 or higher. While I am a Freestyle Mastery, I get to level 2 at the beginning of the first combat almost every single game. Didn't against Tim Batal because of Piccolo the Trained. There are things that can stop it, but generally speaking, Narrow Escape is going to be a stop all everything, twice per game, too good, can't not run it. Torturous Volley I haven't talked about yet. Energy for 2, choose a card in your discard pile and rejuvenate it. Holy crap. I'm rejuvenating any card from my discard pile. There are not a whole lot of effects in the game that do that. There are a bunch. There's a few. There's a lot of decks have access to one or two of them. This freestyle decks normally do not have access to that sort of thing. The reason that's important in this deck is because I'm rejuvenating everything else with Frieza's Daunting Bombardment. This helps me get back anything that you see right here that could end up in my discard pile. This lets me choose it to get back. I can recursion my Time as a Warrior's tool, my stare downs, my battle pausing if I take it as damage. Any of the blocks if I take as damage. The Villainous Powerball is going to be a great card against physical combat decks. Didn't end up coming into play a whole lot this tournament, but it's a card that's going to stay in. Really, really good. Lowering anger. This deck does not get angered out. There's so many ways to lower anger if you need to. The other cool thing that Torturous Volley does, though, is if you have 2 or less traits and do have the alien trait, which Frieza does and does not have any other traits that go into play, this attack stays in play to be used the second time this combat. So I'm doing 4 life cards of damage, and turns into 8 life cards of damage, which turns into 2 cards rejuvenated, regardless of whether or not it does. I'm throwing off those energy attacks, doing extra damage, keeping the heat on. Torturous Volley is a must for this deck. This is probably, of all the cards that you see here, this card is as necessary as Time as a Warrior's Tool or Earth 7. You gotta run Torturous Volley in this deck. I think the only card left that I haven't talked about is I'll Dig Your Grave. I put this in there kind of on a whim. There are a couple situations where you want to get your opponent off of whatever level they're on. So my match against Tim Batal, he was using the Piccolo the Train. I'll Dig Your Grave is the card that I wanted more than anything else, and I couldn't get it, and I lost the game pretty handily, which may have gone differently if I was able to get a dig early and get him off that level 1. It's nice to be able to go up if I Frieza Irritations grows, if I'm able to get up to level 3 and I want to go to level 4, Dig gives me the opportunity to do that. Honestly, I'm probably going to switch it for something like Are You Tough Enough, just because I love the ability of I'll Dig Your Grave to turn off endurance for my opponent, but it's situationally, it doesn't really do work. It's hard to explain. This card is really, really, really close to helping in most matchups. It does help in a few, but in most it just kind of doesn't. So I think a single Are You Tough Enough just to benefit from that endurance. I can recursion that with Torturous Volley, with Chilled. There are ways I can get around it, so I'm probably going to go that route instead. Hey there, apologies for the weird transition. The video got cut off while I was in the middle of recording that last bit there. I have talked about all the deck. At the end I was talking there about I'll Dig Your Grave. I'm probably going to replace it with something like True Grit, a couple other energy attacks, maybe make the deck more aggressive. I am considering taking down the number of Frieza named cards, taking out some of the ones that don't do as much good for me as the others, but also I just kind of like the way the deck works right now, so I'm going back and forth on it. Not sure where I'm going to go, but the deck itself works really, really well as is, and it's really, really fun to play, so I hope you have some fun with it. As always, if you saw any of my cards that weren't foil and you have those foil and you wanted to trade or sell them to me, hit me up because I love that shit. Otherwise, yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Random Number Gaming. Thanks, Didier. Thanks, the guy I went to college with named Will Mahoney about 14 years ago. Haven't talked to since. He's still a pretty cool dude. I'm almost sure of it.